I live in Campty. It's just a little town, hour and a half south of Shreveport. I'm in ROTC in school. I've got 2 brothers. I played football 2 years. Well, it was a Saturday morning. We went out to Kisatchie. We got there, we swam down the creek a little to where the swimming spot was. There's a log that spans over the water. We were playing and I was on top of the log and I slipped off and I landed on my head. Instantly, I couldn't move. When I floated to the top, my little brother was running around playing and I got his attention. There was another family of people that was down there. They called an ambulance. It took them about an hour to get there because we were so far off. We drove probably about 45 minutes to where they could land a helicopter to fly me. And went to LSU. It was pretty painful. I've never experienced anything like that in my life. I was terrified.
There's lots of reasons to call a helicopter. This specific day was geographical. They were remote. This day in September was my one and only time to land in Kisatchie National Forest, and that is memorable when you see it from the air. It is massive and impressive. And I remember our pilot, Ryan Baker, he said, I am going to be very careful with this scene because we don't have much room to land. When we landed, the ground crews had already gotten Taylor out of the woods, and we met them in an ambulance. We hopped in the back of the medic unit to meet our patient, and it was obvious to everyone there that he had no sensation from, I believe it was the nipple line down. And this was a true emergent situation where we needed to get this child to the level 1 trauma center as quickly as possible. We loaded Taylor in the helicopter and we lifted off for LSU.
When my resident, Dr. Barry, called me that night, he told me that, yes, this child was here and he had gone and assessed him and that he did not have any sensation below basically his upper chest down, and he was not able to move his legs. And when he was repeating the imaging out to me, he described what we call as a burst fracture of C6, which is one of the vertebrae of the cervical spine. Immediately when he was telling me this story, we know that it's a big problem. And certainly we're worried about him being paralyzed for the rest of his life. His heart rate was very, very low when he was brought to the hospital. His blood pressure was very, very low, essentially indicating that he was in spinal shock. This is a very serious situation.
I'll never forget my baby looking at me and saying, Mama, I feel like I'm a burden.
I remember talking to somebody about it. I asked him if I was ever going to walk again. And he told me he didn't know.
Once they stabilized him, they got some scans, then we took him to MRI to get a better picture of actually the spinal cord and looking at the ligaments of the spine. So we planned the next morning to take him to surgery to try to take that pressure off the spinal cord and repair that fracture. I remember telling his family, you know, there's a chance that he may not walk again. He may not regain that feeling. He may not be able to move his legs again. But the quicker we can get in there, the quicker we can get the pressure off, the quicker we can stabilize his spine, the quicker we can try to get him to rehab and hope that he gets something back. For surgery, we brought him down to our operating room. Once we get down to the front part of the spine, we could obviously immediately see that fracture. We will then put some pins basically in the bone above and below to, again, help kind of stabilize the spine. Under the microscope, we make an incision into the disc space, we clean out all the discs, we take our drill and we'll drill out all of the bone that's fractured down to the ligament. We'll take that ligament down over the top of the spinal canal, and then we're basically looking at the sac that holds your spinal cord, your spinal fluid. We were able to actually see that sac and see that it was still intact, so that's always a good sign for us. We think, okay, good, maybe there's something that's still intact, he'll get that function back. And then once we get all the bone and everything cleaned out, we essentially have to fill that space. We pack a cage, a titanium cage that's packed with his own bone that we've taken out and some bone product. We pack it very firmly into that cage and we hammer it into that space so that it's anchored to the bone above and the bone below, restoring that space where the bone is now gone. And then we put a plate and screws over top of all that hardware to anchor it into the bone above and below so that it'll hold everything in place for us and it'll maintain his alignment. And then it basically will cause that joint to be immobilized. And so they'll grow bone and fuse across that space where we just operated to stabilize his spine. Immediately after surgery, I went out and spoke with his family. Hopefully with time, as the swelling and everything goes down the spinal cord, he'll regain some function, and we just have to wait and give it time. And that, I think, is the hardest part for families and the patient themselves is, just waiting, because it is a waiting game from that point on.
I remember waking up in ICU with, I want to say Mama was there. I looked at her and I told her I couldn't feel my legs. And we cried for a little while.
But initially after surgery, he was pretty much the same. He didn't have any real significant change in his function when we came out.
He'd get better, and then he'd get worse, and then he'd get better, and he'd get worse. I remember he woke up one night, and he was complaining of his knee hurting. He's like, "Mama, my knee hurts," and I was so happy. And he got upset. He's like, "Mama, you're happy because I'm hurting?" I said, "No, baby, it's not because you're hurting. I'm happy because you're feeling something. That's a good sign."
I started to try to write. My hands were getting a little better. I started feeding myself after that too.
When Taylor left and went to rehab, I just thought, man, I hope he gets something back. We had done everything that we could do. I thought we did everything as quick as we could do it.
I never had the mindset that I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life. I told my mom I was going to walk out of the hospital.
It was amazing to go from that hallway that he walked up and down for the 2 months that he was there to walking out.
I was really happy to get out of there. Them four walls for so long, I can only handle so much.
I mean, even the smallest flicker would have been a win, but to see him recover to that extreme of walking back into my office when the last time I'd seen him, really, he, was not able to do any of that. It's why I do my job, because you can really make such a difference in someone's life.
I just want to say thank you to LSU and all of its people. They were the vessels that were used to give us the blessing that we have in him.
I'm grateful for everything that I can do. I feel LSU has given me that second chance. Everything that I've gotten so far, all the progress I've made, they made it all possible.